this is not about learning not PHP. We've been at this conference all week. We've got stuff to dive into. So first, I want to do a shout out to the organizers, the sponsors, and the volunteers who made this conference possible. Thank you. And a special thanks to all of y'all. I'm showing my American accent right now. To all of you for attending. We could not do this without you. Thank you for coming. You all should applaud yourself. Thank you. So as a developer, we are expected to inhale new technologies all the time, from the latest libraries of PHP 8.2 and 3 to performance-driven development. You're probably going to hear some familiar things here. From dissecting PHP's type system to effective code review, from taking over a legacy project to rapid application deployment practices with Symfony. And throughout this conference, we've only touched on these things. So maybe you're inspired to take a deeper dive with these technologies. I personally am inspired by Diana Scarf's talk yesterday and the Laravel's project. I'm going to dive into Laravel. And in the interest of full in the interest of full transparency, I'm a Python developer, but I have touched PHP before. Early in my career, I was a PHP junior developer, and I was just starting to get into the weeds when the company went under. And then I went with a new company, and their language was Python. So ever since, that's where I am. But now I'm with Temporal, who has a PHP SDK. And then yesterday in Diana's talk, I was like, well, I could start to learn this new framework. So I'm going to talk about how I plan on learning this new framework. And I want you to keep in mind that this is not for just... This talk is not just for senior developers, because if you've been doing this for a while, you know how you learn. You're comfortable. But this is also for managers who have junior engineers and interns, and this is how you can support them. And this is also for mentors. And if you're at the senior level, please tell me you're mentoring, because that's how we bring up the next generation of PHP developers, is by supporting the young ones. So raise your hand if you heard something this week that you're keen to dive into. Yeah, it's a good conference. So I propose 6 tools in order to work more efficiently. And I want to say that these are the tools that work for me personally. Through years of experimentation, I have developed these patterns for myself, and I would like to propose that these might be completely wrong for you, but they might work for your proteges, they might work for your people, and you might experiment, or I might say something today and you're like, oh wait, I haven't tried that. I want to try that. So I let's not go backwards. I strongly encourage you to test and experiment with these and make them your own, and encourage the people you work with who are learning quickly or are uncomfortable learning to also experiment and find their learning style where they work most efficiently. So first, who here has heard of escape rooms? Yes. Okay, so confession time. I'm a little bit of an addict when it comes to escape rooms. I'm doing one tomorrow. And that's impressive because it's the only one I've done on this trip. Before COVID, and I would travel a lot in every city, country I went to, I would line up escape rooms every night. and bring people from the conference. And I think we should do that again, don't you? Next year, we'll make it happen. So when you first get into a room and they lock the door, they don't lock the door, and they tell you a puzzle, they give you a framework, the first thing you do, if you've never done an escape room, this is going to make you a professional, by the way. The first thing you do is you look for patterns. And so you look for things that stick out or that match. And one of the things that I do when I'm learning a new technology is I pattern match. So I have a lot of infrastructure experience, a lot of server experience, a lot of database experience. So when I was first learning temporal, it has a little server. And I was like, ooh, I know what a server is. I know what backend is. I know what the database is. And I was mapping the knowledge. And then I would go and make sure I was right. Hey, this is what our docs say. Is that right? Yes. Hey, this is what I'm assuming. Is that right? No. It's actually this and this and this. And what I'll probably be doing with Laravel is comparing it to Django Girls, which is a web framework also. And I'll be mapping my Python knowledge. I'll probably wake up next year and be a PHP developer, and sorry, not sorry. But I'm going to map the familiarity that I have with Django onto Laravel until it doesn't help me anymore to unlock the doors and get to the next room and solve the puzzles. I encourage you to map what you know. You already know PHP, presumably 8.1, maybe older. So mapping to 8.2, you're going to go, oh, this feature was enhanced. Oh, this feature is gone. And you're going to be able to lower your barrier for learning the new technology. All right. Open has two meanings for me. Open as in an open mind, and open as in open source. While you're working, this is a bit of a 2-for-1. I would strongly encourage you to treat any technology, whether or not it is open source, your learning path, treat that as an open source project. I'm not saying put it online and give it an MIT license. I'm saying learn in the open and encourage other people to learn in the open as well, especially with 8.2 and 8.3 PHP. Those documents are the minimum we need to get going. So there will be gaps in there, and so you asking the questions online is going to help not only other people to learn that information, but also encourage the project, oh, that's a huge gap, let's update our docs. I'm not saying it has any holes in it. Actually, that's exactly what I'm saying. But I'm saying we're going to make it better together. That's the open source way. And yes, it feels a little awkward at first. You may be embarrassed. I don't want to look stupid. I get it. Someone else was thinking the same exact thing. I guarantee it. So how do you ask a good question? First of all, don't just ask when you think of it in your head. Please research, because the answer might already be out there. So first you're going to research, you're going to be on topic, and you're going to be very, very specific. What are you trying to do? What's your goal? What are the specific steps to do that goal? What is the expected result? And what is the actual result? These are the 4 steps that we used to ask every person that called us when I worked at Red Hat. I work at Temporal now. I'm not in support. But it helped. Every troubleshooting question, every call that came in was solved very easily because, oh, I get you. I can reproduce your problem so much more efficiently than if you just come to me with a down server and say, it doesn't work, help. Okay, so what were you trying to do? How were you trying to do it? What was the expected result? Not a dead server. And what was the actual result? Then, please keep an open mind about what the results are. The results could be it could be a user error. I can't tell you how many times. It was an ID10T bug, which, by the way, that means an idiot. And it was me. I just misread something. And that's okay, because you're telling the project that something is confusing. So keep an open mind about what your answers might be. And please don't delete it. Even if it's super embarrassing, you can tag me and say, Rain said I had to do this, and I'll take the blame. Keep it simple. Okay, imagine, if you will, that you are learning a new technology like PHP or Laravel. I am not going to take those two, a language and a framework, I am not going to take it and then also add Snowflake databases, which I have never worked with, and Azure, which I have never worked with, and a fourth stack. I am not going to take all that complexity and learn it all at once. I am going to learn the minimum PHP Hello World and the minimum Laravel web framework. And I'm going to put it on things that I am really comfortable with. My local development platform and MySQL database for now, or SQLite. And I'm just going to make a little hello world. I'm not going to build a robust shopping cart. Because all that complexity with learning a new technology means that if something breaks, if you get an error message, I don't know if it's from the language or the database or the platform. It could be anything, because they're all new. Now, Googling it, researching it, I'll probably figure it out. But I have a story for later where error messages can be very confusing. Think of it like wheels of a bike, spokes on a bike. You wouldn't replace the entire bike if you were just trying to learn the technology of a single spoke. You would change and learn the technology of a single spoke, and then change another one once you're comfortable and you're biking. Then change another one. So keep it simple. Instead of trying to learn every feature of Laravel, I'm going to be learning the baby stuff, which, if you want to come tell me about it, you're welcome to. I have already Googled Django versus Laravel and started comparing, mapping out my patterns. One of the things that I was told when I first got to Temporal was, I would like to build something, because that's how I learn. I build. I could read docs all day. I could watch your video and I'd be like, cool. It's not sticking. So I was looking for an application to build for myself. And I was talking to other people for their opinions, bless them, and they were saying it's too simple because Temporal does all these things. And this is not a talk about Temporal, I'm not going into it, but it does all these things. And I was like, yes, but I want to do one workflow, which is the simplest thing you can do with Temporal. One workflow. And then I want to add one activity. And then I want to add a child workflow. And then signals. And then queries. I don't want to replace my entire bike wheel. I will crash. So we're using all these analogies. We did an escape room. Now we're on a bike. Where are we going? We're drinking water. Pardon. I also saw that in Diana's talk, and I was like, stealing that. That was brilliant. She did not chug, but all right, keep it interesting. This is the other thing about the talks that I was having with other people. And I'm not saying don't talk with other people. Please talk with other people. The only way you can learn is through collaboration. But I was getting a lot of feedback about stuff that was really boring to me, like a background checker, which is really cool to like maybe a big company that wants to do a background check. But if I'm just learning a project, I want it to be a game. Catch the pattern? And I completely did want to build an entire escape room. But I was like, wait, simple. And I looked into the features, and I was kind of like, you know what takes turns and waits, which are two features of a workflow, is poker. And so I built a poker app, and I have a lot more appreciation for people who build poker apps professionally, because just shuffling a deck is really complicated. But I knew it was playful, it was a game. Once it was finished, it was CLI, it's CLI based. I could shuffle and deal and trade out. It's just 5-card draw. I like it. I'm kind of proud of it because I built it in 3 days. But I kept it simple but also I kept it interesting because I knew me. I like to game. I'm actually 12 years old. You can tell from the hair. I need some joy in my life. I want to play every day. I am the song. I just want to bang on the drums all day. And so when you are learning, please build something or experiment with things that you find interesting. You might be bored to death with poker. I get it. It's very complicated. But make it something you passionately passionately about. Something that's like, ooh, I want to work on my garden. Ooh, I want to build an escape room database. Ooh, I want to learn how to ride a bike. Not as relevant. Something you feel good about. Okay. This is where it really gets about you. And drinking water, sleeping enough, pausing, going for walks, taking breaks, knowing your own learning style. These are all experiments that I can't tell you how to do, but I can tell you what works for me. As a developer, for example, if I code with no input around me, especially since we work remotely from home, no colleagues, just cats, the kids are at school, and I can go 6 hours without eating. Not healthy, by the way. So something I have to do is set the Pomodoro, or I will just go. And at the end of those 6 hours, I will be dehydrated and miserable, and no longer any information is coming in or going out. So if you find that you just zone out, or that your people just zone out, encourage breaks. Thankfully, we're in Europe where breaks are encouraged. Second, make sure that you kind of understand how you learn. Like there's a bit of a debate today in the education worlds between, there's the visual, auditory, reading, writing, kinesthetic, and there's kind of a debate about, but you just really need to pay attention to your environment and have kind of a merging of all four. I'm not here to debate it. I know that I need to do it. I also know, since I'm slightly ADHD and just go squirrel all over the place, that I need to read it one day and then come back and watch a video and then build something and then go back to those reading. And I kind of Pomodoro that. 20 minutes this, 20 minutes that, 20 minutes this, 20 minutes that, 2 hours of coding. 20 minutes that, 20 minutes that. That's what works for me. Because squirrel. And then finally, I want you to take care of yourself, and I won't get too woo-woo here. This is a whole other talk in itself. Please get enough sleep. Please eat healthier choices. Drink your water. Go for walks. Whatever works for you in your body and your brain. And this is the last tool. I propose, just like the Ice Princess said, to throw it all away if it's not working for you. All of these are not rules, they're hacks that happen to work for me. And none of this might work for you. Now, I'm going to do something very divisive, because I know y'all are brave. I'm just going to use all the princess references right now. Raise your hand if you like Vim. Raise your hand if you're an Emacs person. I forgive you. I come from VimWorld. Sorry, not sorry. And when I first started learning temporal, I coded out that Python, that little app, 3 days, no problem. All in Vim. I know how to exit Vim. And then I started layering temporal on it. And this technology is kind of complicated. You run a server, you use Docker to spin it up, you import the libraries, etc., etc., etc. And I put in a line of temporal code and got an error message. And I was like, is that from the temporal server or my Python app or Docker and with Vim, love Vim, not helpful sometimes. And so I had to break one of my rules of using just one new technology. And I had to add an IDE, which I had never used before, Python, PyCharm. And I was like, what are all these colors? I didn't even know how to install a library using the IDE. I had to look it up. And temporal has a plugin. I was like, oh, awesome. It's not that new. And then suddenly, all the error messages were very clear where they were coming from. Docker, temporal, connection, like very clear. And I was like, oh, sometimes you have to throw away all your rules and swallow your pride and get rid of Vim. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. They say that it's not about the tools until it is. So try not to let the tools be your excuse and break rules. Now, I said all this, and I promise I'm not going to sing. Or am I? No, I'm not going to sing. I promise. I just want you to remember these tools So look for patterns. Keep it simple. Keep it interesting. Keep it personal. You know I'm going to forget one of the rules. And then let it go. I promised I wouldn't sing. And you're welcome.
Well,